Hello everybody and welcome back to another Oscar prediction video where today I will be taking a look at the category of Best Documentary Feature. The five movies that we have in this category are an interesting lineup in the sense that it was not the lineup a lot of people were predicting. There were a lot of big movies that were talked about for this list, as is the case every year. Still a Michael J. Fox movie. It was almost comical how not a single person was predicting that to get the nomination, even though it was sweeping all of the precursors, because by this point we've caught on to the documentary branch's tricks. But even something like American Symphony and Beyond Utopia that seemed well-liked enough to get on still missed. And so, looking at this lineup, there are some very good documentaries here, but not a ton of very popular or well-seen documentaries. And looking at this lineup, I think there is a clear frontrunner, though there could potentially be room for an upset. Also, the thing I want to say right off the bat is that none of these are happy movies. These are all very bleak, harrowing stories, as we often get in the Best Documentary lineup. So if you're going to watch these, definitely bring some tissues. With that out of the way, fifth most likely to win is The Eternal Memory. So, looking at statistics alone, this one got a handful of really good nominations early on. I believe it was a Sundance premiere at the very beginning of the year, and it deals with an elderly couple, one of whom has dementia, and are both dealing with the consequences of that. So obviously, very devastating, very harrowing like the rest of them. The reason I have it ranked last, partially because it hasn't won anything major in the lead up to this, and also because the subject matter, while undoubtedly very serious, is very personal and very intimate, which sometimes can win, but if you look at the history of this category, more often than not, they go for films that are about a very broad, important subject matter that affects a good deal of people, and how something affects a community as a whole. And obviously, dementia is a very serious issue, and it does impact a lot of people, but this is very much focused on just these two. And so, a lot of voters, looking at the other movies in this category, I think voters are going to be more compelled to go with something that's more important, for lack of a better word, more about a very important issue that's impacting a wider community, because a lot of these documentaries are about that. Nothing against The Eternal Memory, but I do think in this lineup it is number 5. Fifth most likely to win is To Kill a Tiger. So this was the big surprise nomination of the morning. I think even when this made the short list, a lot of people were like, what? It hadn't really gotten anything on before then. And I don't know anyone who was actually predicting it to get the nomination. But when it did, and people watched it, there was a collective, oh my god, reaction. Because the film, it basically deals with a father trying to get justice for his daughter after she has been assaulted. And what we find is just how difficult it is for people in third world countries to get the support that they need. I mean, it's obviously very difficult in America, but I believe this is set in the Middle East, and it's really harrowing from everything I hear about just how infuriating it is that justice will not be done, and also the dedication of the father. Like The Eternal Memory, it's dealing with a very specific situation, but also a much broader topic. Like, this is how it is for this one father, but imagine how much harder it must be for so many other people who are affected by this type of violence. So, very, very harrowing, not an upper. And I do think the fact that it is so out of nowhere as a nomination, the fact that so many people did not see this nomination coming, means it probably is not going to win. But I do think this is one of those moments where I feel really positive about the Academy as a whole, because this is a movie that not a lot of people had heard of, and then they watched because it was Oscar nominated, and they were exposed to a film that they otherwise would not have been. So, good job, Academy. We need more nominations like this. Third most likely to win is Four Daughters. So this film deals with a Tunisian woman who is the mother of four daughters, and two of them go missing. And in order to capture this documentary about what they were like and trying to find them, they hire two actresses to come in and play them. And so we sort of see it's one of those documentaries that mixes narrative feature with documentary in an interesting way. And it's gotten a lot of really strong notices. This was one that I did predict to get nominated because of those notices. I don't know if it got anything major. I think it was actually shortlisted for international feature, which was a big deal. Actually, come to think of it, I think all 5 of these nominations are international features. I think Bobby Wine is the only one that is predominantly in English. But it is... So this particular movie, there is a lot of really, really strong praise. A lot of people are saying it's one of the better ones of the year. However, I think one of the big factors against it is the fact that it sort of blends documentary and narrative, which can be interesting, but sometimes there's a question mark of, okay, how much does this really count as a documentary? And if you remember, like a few years ago with Flea, I think that was one of the big contenders, but because it was animated, there was a question of how much of a documentary is it. And I do think Four Daughters is less of that. I mean, there's definitely more documentary stuff going on, but it is kind of, there's a metafictional narrative going on, and very well liked, but I think compared to the top 2, it's not going to be able to quite go the distance in this category. Second most likely to win is Bobby Wine, The People's President. So this is one that I just saw today and was really profoundly moved by it. This deals with the Ugandan president, who, for those who don't know, has been in office for several decades. He keeps winning, and he keeps doing everything in his power to silence those against him. And Bobby Wine is a very, very successful musician, pop star, who decides to run for president. And we sort of see everything that he faces in the lead up to this. Because you might think, oh, a pop star running for president, but he actually does have a political background. It's so crazy to watch someone be a pop musician and a politician at the same time. However, despite what you might think, this is, again, not an upper. This is really, really harrowing, and it shows just how far the president will go to keep himself in power and to prevent the people from voting him out. Even while insisting that he's just trying to keep a fair election, it's very obvious that that's not what he's doing. And so it's really hard to watch in places, and it's really profoundly moving, even if, not to spoil the ending, but it's not an upper. These are all very bleak, harrowing movies, and Bobby Wine maybe makes you think that it might end happier, but at a certain point you realize it's not going to. And so this is really, really powerful stuff. And if it won, I think it would be a great moment for the filmmakers to get up and give a speech about this issue and to try and raise awareness of what the elections are like in Uganda so that this man is not elected to a 7th term after the events of the story. And that Bobby Wine continually gets the support that he needs to potentially be the next president, because the people have chosen him. But despite all of that, I think this would be a very deserving winner in most years, but it does face some incredibly steep competition from number 1 most likely to win, 20 Days in Mariupol. So this is one of those movies where you see it and you're like, what do I even say about it? It is basically documenting the first 20 days of the war in Ukraine. And there are journalists on the ground covering this in detail, getting full footage of what is happening to these people. And It is maybe one of the most difficult watches I've ever had of any film. It is it's hard to watch, but it is vital to watch. And they say it in the movie, this is not easy to watch, and it shouldn't be easy to watch. It is genuinely some of the most harrowing footage you will ever see. And maybe it's not doing anything super compelling with the filmmaking, but it doesn't need to do that. It's more a feat of journalism than anything else. So there is a question of, okay, does that mean it's the most deserving to win the Oscar? But I think, given everything that's happening in Russia and in Ukraine and the war that is still going on, and the fact that just last year we gave this to a documentary about Alexei Navalny, who recently died under suspicious circumstances, the amount of anti-Putin rhetoric that is going around the Western world, I say that as though this movie-winning documentary would somehow, like, Putin's not going to care. He has bigger things to worry about. But the thing is, in the film itself, they go to such great lengths to show you how difficult it was, A, to get this footage, and B, to get the footage out there to the news outlets. Like, it is not hyperbole to say that they are putting their lives in danger to get this footage. And in the film, we see the Russian news network dismiss this footage as being staged, which is absolutely ridiculous. And still to this day, Putin will insist that none of this footage is real, that it's all acted out. And I'm sorry, but that is such BS, and it's so evident when you watch the movie. I just feel like this is important. This really showcases the importance of documentary filmmaking, because in the movie, there are people that are like, oh, why don't you put down the camera and help us? Like, what do you think you're doing just filming everything? But there are also people that are like, this needs to be filmed. Like, people need to see what is happening in Ukraine. And so yeah, I think for all those reasons, this is just one of those cases where the important movie wins. And I do want to say, if we had a lighter, feel-good documentary in the race, if we had a Summer of Soul or a My Octopus Teacher, then maybe you could make an argument that, like, oh, are people really going to want to vote for something that's just so bleak and so hard to watch? But we don't have one. All of these movies are bleak. All of these movies are difficult to watch. And I think because of that, because it's a lot more even, you kind of have to give the award to 20 Days in Mariupol, because what it's doing is just that impressive and that important. So thank you very much for watching, and tune in next time when I will be taking a look at the category of Best Documentary Short. See you then.